great.
My mother used to talk. You know,
Right.
we didn't have no radio, no TV, so my mother would tell us stories and tell
That's
us different
great.
things. And what happened is when I went to Italy, I went to my mother's town.
Mhm.
And in this town they had a little, I told this, my mother always used to talk about, the place that she used to go to, they called Monte Monaco. You know, it was a mountain part of it. So I asked this cousin of hers, I said, I would like to go there. She says, how did you know about this place? And a lot of those people, actually, when I started asking about these different places, and my mother would tell me, we'd go for wood here, we'd go harvest the wheat here, we'd go pick the figs and the olives here, and so I knew all of these places in my mind. So when I started asking these people, these cousins, a lot of these people thought I was born there and went back for a visit, you know, because I could speak the language as well as they did because we had that same dialect, and I remembered all of the places that we went to. So it was really, really.
So was it what you expected when you got there?
Yes, yeah, almost to the T. I could have visualized these places.
No way.
One place we went, we had to ride a mule for 4 miles to get to it, you know.
Yeah.
And my mother would carry the wood on her head to bring home for the fireplace, you know. They'd gather all these big thing on top of her and my Aunt Clorinda.
Yeah.
See, my Aunt Rose left, and so my mother and Aunt Clorinda did all the work over there because they lost their father, didn't have no brothers.
Definitely.
Okay, let me just tell you what happened to this bike. See, I was about 10 years old, and really didn't have any money. So the drugstore put on a contest. Every week there's 30 of us that signed up. We would go out and sell stuff. They would give you soap, and you go out and sell soap. Next week they'd probably give you Dutch cleanser. Next week they'd probably give you something else, you know. And as you sold this stuff, they would give you a script. They would give you points, you know.
Yeah.
So like say this week they wanted to sell soap, and they give you 10 points for each bar you sold. Well, normally when you went to the drugstore and bought it, you got 1 point for the soap, but it was on a special. So my mother decided, says, well, maybe what we should do is buy, when the soap comes on special, we'll buy this soap, and we'll buy a lot of it, see? And then when you go out during the week selling your other stuff, you carry soap with you and sell it for this, you know, and other stuff that was on special. So we did that. And then the thing behind it that was the kicker is my mother says, you know, Joe, so what we got to do is we can't be turning in all these points at the end of the week. You know, at the end of the week you would turn in everything you had made in your points. They would total them up, and they had a list up there with your name on it. And this guy was number 1, number 2, number 3. So I was always down around number 10 or 11, you know. But I kept back the money. I kept back some of these points. I would never turn them all in. So then when it was getting towards the end, it was I think we was on it for, I don't know, something like 30 weeks or 40 weeks or something like that. I don't know. Almost a long time. So as we started getting towards the end, I started bringing a little more of this money back in, and then I went up to 7th place and 5th place and 3rd place. So the last week I was in 3rd place, and the guy says, if you have any more of this script money, bring it all in. Now's the time to count it.
Yeah.
So I brought all my money in, and when they counted it, I was number 1. And the guy that was number 1 for 30 weeks or 40 weeks went down to number 2. See, so I won this bicycle. It was an all aluminum, had a horn on it, had
That thing is
a
incredible.
light. It was a beautiful, beautiful.
Yeah, that was cool.
Well, I had this bike for a couple of years. I was about 10 there. I had this bike for a couple of years, and between me and my brothers, we probably wore out this bike, you know. So I went to see a guy live by us, and I told him, I says, Mr. Massari, would you like to buy a bike? An old junk bike? Yeah, he says, I'll buy it. So he says, how much you want for it? I said, I want $5. No, I said, I can't give you more than 3. I says, well, $4. He says, okay. So he gave me $4. So I took the $4 and I went and bought a Model T Ford. Old junk.
You serious?
Yeah, for $4. And
Did it run?
To run, well, we pushed it more than it ran, but it would run, you know. So finally I turned around and sold this Model T to someone else, and I bought another one for $4. And this is one of the Model Ts that, when I bought this little pickup, I got stuck in the back of my house up there. So I went home to get the to get my dad's car. Yeah, I was only 12 years old. My mother said, don't touch that car, don't touch that car. So I said, I gotta go. So I jumped in the car, I jumped that Model A, I backed it out, I ran up there, went and picked up the car, pulled it home. As soon as I pulled it by my door, by my mother's yard, my mother come out with an axe. And she chopped this truck up.
No way.
Cut the radiator, busted the block, busted the engine, cut the tire. She demolished it.
No way.
It's a good thing I didn't get close. She should have probably demolished it. But anyway, so from there on, then we had, so then this bike, the guy that I sold it to fixed it up. And he sold it to somebody else. My brother come home and he says, hey, Pa, he says, you know, the bike Joe had, I see this guy here's got it. So my dad got mad because this guy bought the bike for me as a little kid, you know, and not asking the parents if it was all right. So he went to see this guy. So this guy says, well, I'll give you your money back. My dad says, no, he said, I just want you to know that it was wrong. He said, I don't want my money back. Well, anyway, this guy went and got the bike from the guy that he sold it to. Brought the bike up. My dad wanted to pay him for fixing it, but he wouldn't take nothing. So here, give me this bike all fixed up.
You're kidding.
And that's
So
the end of
sweet.
that story. Okay.
That is great, isn't it?
Then the first day that I went to school, my mother told me, she says, the only thing my mother knew in English was, she'd say, I want you, if you have to go to the toilet, you go to the teacher, you tell her, I gotta go to the toilet. So I had to go pee. I go to the teacher, I gotta go to the toilet. She says, okay. So I take off and I come all the way from school home. I didn't know they had toilets. And so I got home, then I was so ashamed that I didn't want to go back. And so this neighbor's, my interpreter's oldest brother, he finally brought me back. And the teacher, what happened is she started me off,
Now, who was that teacher?
Mrs. Mignoni. And what happened is she says, we'll take him and keep him there for 1 year to teach him the language, and then the next year he'll start off with his peers, you know. And but first year I was there, I should have brought my report cards with all the stars.
How'd you do?
All the stars and languages. So the first year I passed it, you know. I picked it up real fast, and my brothers, amazingly, as I would go home and show them, tell them what I learned during the day, you know, when they started school, they all spoke English, you know. My brother Jersey bought a fence one time, you know, from that used to be up around where the stone was. One of these cemetery fences. But when he got it, it didn't have a very good-looking gate, you know. It was too big or something. So my brother comes up one day when he puts the fence up, and he's got this real nice gate, you know. I said, where'd you get it, Jersey? He said, I went down and traded old man Pistuna for one. He put his gate right there where this fence is.
He didn't take it? He
Who?
did?
He took the gate.
Traded.
He took the
He
gate.
traded.
He traded. He says, that guy was real happy to do it.
He didn't complain a bit. He didn't say a word.
Well, in the old country down in that small town, every 10 years, they gather the bones and use the land over again because they're...
You're kidding.
No, it's wanted. They need the land. So what they did is they, and I didn't know it at the time, they take all of these bones, gather them up, and they throw them in like a deep well. So my cousin, when he took me, brought me over to this well, and he says, well, there they are. Do you think you could recognize them? And there it was. I looked down this shaft, and it was, I'm telling you, bones and bones.
Oh my God.
Everything. The streets where I went were all cobblestone, where my dad was born. He was born in Sicily. And
What's the name of the town?
Marianopoli.
Okay.
Okay, he was born in Marianopoli, the Provincia di Cartanizete. And he was born there, and when he was 18 months old, his dad decided to work. He was working on the railroad. They decided to follow the railroad. That at that time they built the railroad from Messina through Reggio Calabria all the way up. They were building the railroad. So they went to this town of Grimaldi, and my dad worked in this. My grandfather worked in this part of the Grimaldi. So my father was raised in Grimaldi, 2 miles away from where my mother was born. But they didn't know each other in the old country, and so Grimaldi, a lot of people in our part of in Aguilar here, the two people that you know come from Grimaldi. The Cazedos, the Guerreros, the Sposados, the Sacumanos, the Valtries, all of these people here, the Nacarados, the Guadagnolis, they all come from this little town of Grimaldi. A town probably, as a matter of fact, one time, a history instructor in Trinidad, Morris Taylor, asked me one time, he says, Joe, he says, you went to Italy, do you know where Grimaldi's at? And I says, yeah. I said, I went there, my father come from there. He says, how big is that town? I says, it might have 4,000 people, you know. He says, 4,000? He says, we probably buried 10,000 here in Trinidad. Because every time they buried one of them, you know, he was descended from the Grimaldi, you know.
What did your family in Sicily, what was their profession?
Important.
Poor people. They were farmers.
Yeah.
And they raised wheat. Now, actually as late, I went in the 60s to Italy, and as late as I went, the town was still a primitive town, where I told you that they cut the wheat right. Well, what they would do then, they would gather, and up to the third floor, the house had 3 floors. It had the bottom floor, which the mules stayed in, you know, they had mules, and then the next floor was where they lived, and then the third floor was the kitchen. And then from the 3rd floor, they had a little hole and a silo built through the center of the house where they would dump all this wheat. So, like my cousin, I bet you she didn't weigh 110 pounds, and she'd pick up a 100-pound sack of wheat and walk those 3 flights of stairs and go and load them into the silo light. Well, then they used this wheat for everything. They would take so much wheat to go to and have it milled. This much for you, this much for you. They would take so much of the flour, take it to the baker. You make the bread, so much bread for you and so much bread for us. Then they would take it to the barber. You cut the hair for the year and you get so much of this. Then they would go to the shoemaker, you fix the shoes and you would get so much of this here. And this is the way that they lived. And they were still doing that when I went there. And,
When did the Ludlow Massacre happen?
1913,
Okay, when did Papa come out here?
1905.
So
He worked
he
around.
worked,
Yeah,
he
and
was
he
there.
worked. As a matter of fact, his dad worked 1 year and went back to the old country. He had his family there, and he picked them up, and they went back to Sicily. They were in the Scalabri at the time. They went back to Sicily. Then, when the strike came, the militia come down here, and I was telling Joel about the militia there. He's got, and I said that when the militia come, they wanted to get these strikes. These guys were on strike to go back work in the mines. Well, in the meantime, if you went on strike, the company would kick you out of the camp. You know, you couldn't work there. And so one of our friends here, which Gina probably remembers, at Ventura, he killed a militiaman, shot him in the head. The bullet went through the head and hit Mike Guerrero, who was my godfather,
Kumbadi Mike.
in the eye. And my eye, he lost. Then they wanted to know who shot him, and he wouldn't tell them. So they took him to the hospital. He lost his eye. They couldn't do anything about it. Well, at that time, then they started on all the paisanos there. So my dad says, well, he says, not me here. So he hightails it off, and he takes off, and he goes to Dawson, New Mexico. And that's where he worked until everything kind of settled up again. They used to have mules in the mine that used to pull the coal cars out. And my dad was a driver, and those mules are stubborn. Every once in a while they'd get down there and they would move. You could kill them, they wouldn't move. So my dad was trying to get this mule to move, and the mule wouldn't move. So my dad got back, and the mule kicked my dad. My dad went up and punched him in the neck. Follow! And killed the mule.
Killed the mule.
Killed the mule.
Yeah.
And they fired him.
Fired him.
Kept us
So he was-
kept us pay to pay for the.
And how long was he fired for?
I mean, he fired. That was it. He took his stuff and left.
And he never went back?
Not to that mine. Went to another mine. Not that mine. You kill a mule. You kill a mule like you can kill a couple people. You could kill people, but you couldn't kill mules.
No, because they were important, see?
Totally.
Oh, more important than the people. Now they can replace miners all the time, but they couldn't replace mules. And they never bent a rail. They used to have a rail bender that It's made like a horseshoe. It has a screw in it, and you put the bend to make the curve on the rail. My dad would get up on the side of the mine, and he would get his feet like this, and they'd put a spike there, and he would push with his feet and bend this rail. So my dad had 3 older sisters. Yes, honey, ready?
Now, is that not amazing?
Now, when we were young, we never carried a jack.
Mario do that?
All we carried was a block of wood.
Mario could probably
And
do
my
that.
dad would lift up all the cars, and we had a flat, and we'd put this block of wood under it. My dad would change it, and he'd lift it up and let it down again. Oh. As you'll notice in our side of the family, the name Gaetano
Got
and
it.
Giuseppe, and Gaetano and Giuseppe, they keep cropping up because the custom is you name the firstborn son after your father.
Right.
See, so I was named after my grandfather. Gaetano was named after his grandfather, after my father. See.
You know you and Alice both grew up in Aguilar?
Huh?
Did you see each other before you got
Yeah,
married?
well, she at that
You-
time she was a lot younger than I. I mean,
But
she's 3
you-
years younger than me, and
right.
at that time,
Yeah.
3 years is quite a bit, you know.
Yeah. Going through
I'm
school.
I graduated from school. She's in the 8th grade, you
Right.
know.
Yeah.
So,
So you knew about each other, you just didn't know
Huh?
each other. You knew each other existed.
well, I know him. I know him. As a matter of fact, your brother and I went to the army together.
Okay.
Yeah, we went to
Right.
the army together with Rusty, and then after I come out of the service, I saw her. Lost my mind, lost my marbles.
Volare, oh, cantare, oh, nel blu dipinto di blu, felice di stare lassù.
Let's forget about domani. Let's forget about domani. Let's forget about domani, for domani never comes.
Let's forget about domani. Let's forget about domani. Let's forget about domani, for domani never comes. Tomorrow, forget tomorrow. Let's live for now, and anyhow, who needs tomorrow? The moonlight, let's share the moonlight. Perhaps together we will never be again. Oh, what a moon, oh, what a sea, with such a moon and such a sea, and you with me. I get so dizzy when you're standing near. It's not the music that you hear. My heart keeps beating like a jungle drum. Let's take the minutes as they speed away and hope it's true what people say when you're in love. Tomorrow never comes.
Su dimentichiamo domani, su dimentichiamo domani, su dimentichiamo domani, perché forse non verrà.